Hey everybody, and welcome to Assault. We are in West Lafayette, Indiana, where my mother and brother live, and we're at my mom's house, sitting on her screen porch in a beautiful low 80-something degree weather with little fans on, and it is absolutely amazing.
It is.
Yes, and it's far different than Texas. Not that we are downing Texas, but this is really nice up here. And it's cool, and it's breezy, and there are birds that chirp.
It is. The summer is lovely, but winter has snow and things like that.
Yeah, right now it's nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, winter gets a little chilly.
But someday when she has snow and we're sitting there in 50-degree weather, then,
Well, Texas not so bad.
Yeah.
But we actually here, I don't know, like 4 years ago, 4 years ago, at this very table, doing this very thing, probably in this very setup. Although I think I was sitting there and you were sitting here.
Yeah, and it may have been a little more towards the middle or something, do you think? Because
we're
facing that way, I think,
But same place, so, kind of full circle coming around. But yeah, we're here, and actually today we're going to talk about something that's pretty practical and meaningful to everybody, and it's the difference between divine intervention or coincidence or chance. So lots of things happen to us in life, and the longer you live, the more experiences you have to look back at. But it's these times where things happen and you think, wow, what good karma, or wow, what good luck that was, and was it just circumstances that happened to go our way, or was it, divine intervention, and God stepping in and taking care of us? And, as Christians, it's the idea of choosing by faith to believe that this is something, that God promised to take care of me in the big and the little things, and, this is Him keeping that promise. It's not just chance, it's not just good luck or good karma, it is, God stepping in and, angels there for us and taking care of us. Actually, I have had several stories where I could tell that, I thought, like when I was driving and doing things on the road, and mine would be mildly entertaining. However, Miranda shared with me something I didn't know until she told me this last time.
I told him it at least one time. One time, yeah. And it's way more remarkable than any of mine. So please share with the audience something you just told me yesterday. No. Well, I told him at least one time. It probably only once, and probably a long time ago. So, anyways, I was had decided to drive from Kodiak, Alaska. Well, first of all, you don't drive the entire way from Kodiak, Alaska. You have to take the ferry off to the mainland. But anyways, after that, it is a bit of a drive down the Alcan, and then I went to Colorado to see my sister, and then after that I took the kids to Florida and Disney World and the beach and stuff like that down there, and then we had a back stay with my sister a little bit longer, and then we drove back up the Alcan. Now, I don't know, the kids were probably, my youngest was either 3 or 5, which made the kids like say 5, 7, and 10 maybe, probably. And so there's a certain section of the Alcan that...
Okay, let me... Uno momento, por favor.
From the man who knows no Spanish.
She's telling this like, I got in the car, I ran down the corner, got some milk, and came home. This is Kodiak, Alaska, an island, right? That she ferries over, drives through Canada, the continental United States, to get to Florida. It's like driving to Paris and back. And this is a huge drive. This is a very long drive, very involved drive. This is before they knew about airplanes, actually. There was like a lot involved, and you were in a van?
Yeah.
A van with 3 kids and just you, right?
Yes.
So, all right, just context here, right? This was a huge trip. Huge. Please continue. Now we're at the Alcan, which is a little more than a goat trail.
Well, okay, so granted, a bit of it was still unpaved when we were driving back and forth. Though the very last time that I drove down it, most of it was paved by then. So, but yeah, there was still vast quantities of it, really, where you wouldn't see too much of civilization as you're driving along. And there was one section of the road where you had to get gas at this
town in order to make it to the next town. And any number of people, you would see them not only filling up their cars, but they would be putting gas in extra containers in their trunk, basically.
Yes, because in between are only miles of unpaved road and Kodiak bears and moose.
Yeah.
And you cannot ride the moose to the next gas station.
No. So, anyways, that was the kind of drive it was. And so all of a sudden, we weren't too far from Anchorage. I think we were probably close, about 100 miles from Anchorage still. And I came out to this T in the road, and there was a stop sign. Stopped at the stop sign. Directly across was a gas station, so I suppose I figured I'd pull over there. And it was honestly the first civilization I had seen in quite some time. So I'm sitting there, look both ways, nothing's coming, decide to cross the road, and the vehicle goes nowhere, just kind of, rev the engine, but it wasn't going anywhere. And so the guys at the gas station were kind enough to come over, push me across the road. They took a look at it, because they did have a garage. And they said, well, your transmission is out. But they couldn't fix it. I would need to take a tow truck to Anchorage. So I went ahead and did that, of course. But I did. It was like, wow, the odds of the transmission going out right there. What were they for all of the driving I had done? All of the driving I had done on the Alcan. And then right at that moment, when we're finally getting close to civilization again, there's a gas station directly across the street from where my car decides to quit the transmission.
Yeah. What are the there might have been places along, different places while you're driving through the country in Florida, but in the Alcan and all that wilderness, and then you break down right in front of a gas station with guys who can come out and help, and you can get, that, and then again, it was like, wow, what are the chances? Or is this something, the angels are holding the engine together until you get to that point, and boom, you're like,
yeah, it'll be interesting to know that someday. Exactly, But yeah, I'll have to admit, you always start your day with asking for God's care and protection and such, but we sure don't know how that's going to turn out by the end of your day sometimes. And so certainly, things like that happened in my life. And when those things happened, I most of the time, of course, obviously would chalk that kind of stuff up to God, something like that for sure. And it's one thing I've learned is the more often we use faith, the bigger that it grows our faith. Mm-hmm. If we believe that it was God that did it, then we have more faith that He is going to continue to take care of us and continue to do things like that for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that was one of the times we're talking about, things happen and you think, oh, God was stepping in and taking care of us, But then there's also other times, other things, like sometimes when I'm in a conversation, like with a student or a parent or somebody, and depending on what the topic is, but, I'm trying to think of something to say, and then I get a moment of inspiration. Actually, sometimes when I was a pastor and I'd be up front, and I had something written down, something I was going to say, but something came to me in the moment, and there are times where preachers look at that and we go, like, the Holy Spirit whispered in my ear and gave me a thought or an idea or a word or something. And that's another way that, sometimes, God gives us these little moments of a thought or a word or something. It's like,
right, and rather than take credit for ourselves, you give the credit to God.
Right, you think, wow, that was, thank you, Lord, that was, or where did that come from? I've never even thought of that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I had an experience like that recently, only I wasn't up front preaching or teaching a class or anything like that. It was early in the morning, and I was just lying there thinking and doing a little praying, thinking and praying, and I was thinking about all the things that God has done for me and us, and, I'm sure some people could chalk it up to luck, good luck, or coincidence, but I always count it basically as God having done it. So I thought about that stuff for a bit, and I said to him, I wanted God's help to live out each moment as He gives it to me with love and peace, and I wanted to do it with joy and profundity. And I stopped right there, because profundity was not on my list of words that I used. I read it, had a vague concept of it, but hadn't used it, because we're really, do you use the word profundity?
Profundity.
I mean, in regular, ordinary conversations.
Yes, and in case you don't know, profundity, deep insight, great depth of knowledge or thought.
Ah, he read my notes.
I did.
So yeah, since I didn't even know what it meant, I wanted to be sure I knew what it meant. I thought, I will look this up and see how God might be working this into what I was praying. And that's what it meant. It meant deep insight, great depth of knowledge or thought. And so it was the perfect word, right? Mm-hmm. To live out God's love and peace with profundity, to live it out with deep insight and great depth. I thought, wow, I probably wouldn't even have thought on my own to ask for that, and it was a moment where you have to chalk it up to not coincidence, but something that God came along and did.
A moment of inspiration.
Yeah. And so that took me to Asa's prayer. Don't ask me how I get this. Actually is going somewhere. It is not as random as it sounds.
Do we know Asa?
Yes, Asa. You remember him?
He lived down the road from us. They're in Maryland.
You're going to tell us all about Asa.
Asa.
Yeah, before we get to Asa's prayer, Brett has to do a little who Asa was and where he came from and such. Yeah. Well, and this story is found in 2 Chronicles 14.
Where you find a story of lots of the kings of Judah and Israel, and Asa was one of those. And along that string of kings, you'll find that some were good kings and some were not so good kings. Some are flat out bad kings. And some led the people astray, and some would bring them back to God. And Asa was one of them that brought the people back to God. And so when he came into power, he went through the kingdom and, tear down all the, altars to idols, and, we're all turning back to God. And he was basically leading Israel back to worshiping God, and he worshiped God, and he was a good king. And he, at the time, when there was, peace, I guess, going on, he built up the walls, and he, raised the army and fed the widows, and I don't know. He did lots of good stuff. And he had a pretty decent army, 600,000 or so, and that's good until the Ethiopians come marching at you with over 1 million. And he had over 1 million men, and they had chariots with horses and lions and tigers and bears, and it was very frightening. And Asa had to confront this with 600,000 men. And so the prayer that Asa gave is fairly, I'd say, famous. It's an Old Testament prayer. For an Old Testament prayer, it's famous. And it wasn't just so much that it was the words he used is what kind of made his prayer a little bit unique.
Yeah, so here's 2 Chronicles 14:11. It's not particularly long. Then Asa called to the Lord his God and said, Lord, there is no one besides you to help in the battle between the powerful and those who have no strength. So help us, O Lord our God, for we trust in you. In your name we have come against this multitude. O Lord, you are our God. Let not man prevail against you. And so the next two verses directly
give the results
after this prayer.
Yeah.
Verses 12 and 13. So the Lord routed the Ethiopians before Asa and before Judah, and the Ethiopians fled. Asa and the people who were with him pursued them as far as Gerar, and so many Ethiopians fell that they could not recover. For they were shattered before the Lord and before his army, and they carried away very much plunder. So first of all, clearly they believed that God did answer the prayer, and this was not just by chance or coincidence that they were such great warriors that they, fought off twice.
Yeah.
And honestly, okay, so right this second, there's a beautiful yellow finch just sitting over in that little tree. It is so pretty.
Oh, I see it.
Yes.
Oh, it is pretty.
Yeah, that's way off topic, but that is really pretty. You don't see a bright yellow finch terribly often.
Get a picture. Yeah. Hopefully we'll share a picture of the finch.
Yes. So, and second of all, okay, what I found most interesting about this prayer was that very last sentence. It says, do not let man prevail against you. And most of the time, we as humans would probably ordinarily say something like, do not let man prevail against us, God.
Right, yeah.
Do
not let those people prevail against us and destroy us, but that was interesting. It's against you,
Yeah,
God.
against you.
Yeah.
And that's just an entirely different angle of looking at that. It definitely provides more depth in understanding of who God is and who we are, in comparison to just saying, oh, God help me and don't let man prevail against me.
Yeah, it's kind of God's reputation. I mean, one of the things that's interesting about the Old Testament, especially God in the Old Testament, is that all the nations had gods. There was gods everywhere. There was left and right gods. Gods over there and over there and over there. Everyone had a god. The one thing that made the God of Israel unique was that all the other gods you had to sacrifice to, and you had to pray to, and you had to plead with, and maybe, just maybe, if they were in a good mood, they might send a little drops of rain for you. But you weren't really all that important to them, right? And the God of Israel was unique in that they claimed to be loved by their God, and that he wanted to be with them, where the gods of the other nations were off, but their God wanted to be with them and love them and took care of them. And so that's one of the things you kind of look at perspective. The Ethiopians would have come up against this and been like, well, we'll see if their God really is more powerful or not. Because in that time, armies equated victory and defeat with whose God was stronger.
Right, and so just a little bit of an explanation for that train of thought. Basically, okay, so there's a Bible verse that says, be sober and vigilant, for your enemy the devil goes around as a roaring lion seeking to devour you. Which takes me next to Psalm 23, the good shepherd and his sheep, and the good shepherd does everything for the sheep, right? And if a wolf comes to try to have you for lunch, God is not going to send you out to defend yourself, because you can't. And this is where all the power and therefore all the glory belong to God. And this is why Asa ends his prayer with, do not let man prevail against you. Sorry, we are so lacking sleep around here on vacation. But do not let man prevail against you, because he knows that he has no more power against the Ethiopians than the sheep does against the wolf. And this is God defending his righteousness on our behalf. So this was also Asa living out the love of God with profundity, with depth and clarity. As Abraham did the same thing when he trusted God and set out to offer his son as a sacrifice. Same with Noah, when he chose to live out the words of God and believe that God was going to send rain from the sky, water from the sky, even though it had never happened before. But he also trusted that if he built a boat according to God's plan, that he would save his family and animals and anyone else that wanted to be saved. Yeah. And so the word profundity in my own prayer, was that coincidence or God's intervention?
Yeah.
So, yeah. And
I think that, for Asa, the, lion at the door of the wolf, that was the Ethiopians. And, obviously in Psalms, David was a shepherd and he had to deal with the bear and the lion, but it's true for us. Any given day, we have different sizes of wolves coming for us.
Yeah, there's always the temptations, and it's, in the end, we can't really win against temptation, not on a permanent basis, and it is God there who fights the enemy for us.
And that's where you're talking about God delivers us, God delivers us from the wolf and the bear.
Right, because it's there in Ephesians 6 with putting on the armor of God. It begins with, this battle is fought in the spiritual realm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, and anything else?
Oh, well, I was going to add that, to me, in my mind, I picture it sort of like something happens and we need God to defend us, and he just comes in, it's like he's tucking his little children into bed, his little child into bed. And he's like, you know what? I'll see you in the morning, and I'm the one who's going to go ahead and fight the enemy for you. And you just stay right here, take a nice little nap or rest while I go out and do the work for you. And he comes back victorious, because, seriously, can any man prevail against God? Man can get the upper hand against other men, but there is no man that can get the upper hand against God.
And so that's back to the, is it coincidence? Is it luck? Is it God? The idea of, what are the wolves that come after you on any given day? What are the little wolves and the big wolves we have to face in our lives? And when we get delivered from that stuff, when, the car breaks down in the right place, or we cross paths with just the right person at the right time, or the thoughts or the words come, and those are times where it's like, Asa was telling God, deliver us, do not let, these things prevail against you. And we have the choice to believe that's faith, or luck. And I think, to leave you with one other thought, it's, we have those things happen to us a lot. And how often do we, just take a moment and go, wait, that was you, God. Big or little things, wow, thank you, God, for that moment. That was good. Like there was the 10 lepers that were healed. And only one.
You're reading my notes.
I was they didn't know I was reading your notes till you said that.
Yes, well, I was thinking about using that for next week, but go ahead and wrap it up with that, because
I thought it was a good thought.
We can, you go ahead, because you were using it better than I was going to, yeah.
Well, the 10 lepers, Jesus healed, and they all went out, but one came back and said thank you, and that's what we're like. Are we the one, that comes back in those moments?
That comes back and says thank you for things like that, and
because that strengthens us as well, not just activate, but thankfulness also strengthens us.
It does, because it puts things in proper perspective.
Yeah.
It's not us that is all that.
Yeah.
It's not us. It is God, and we are recognizing that when we tell Him thank you and we give Him praise for what He has done for us.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just on your own selfish way.
But it also lifts you up. It just heightens your mood too. Being thankful. I think
true.
brings you closer to people. It brings you closer to God as well when we thank Him for stuff. Mm-hmm. So, all right. Well, thanks for joining us, and we're headed to North Carolina from here. So we've been on the road a bit, and we're going to continue to be on the road, and we will be going from here to North Carolina, and who knows where. But next time we broadcast might be the Smoky Mountains. Or somewhere like Biltmore, it will not be Biltmore.
We're not going to Biltmore
because they've raised their prices.
They have raised their prices. It is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's too expensive to go to Biltmore. We should have listened to Aspen the last time we were at Biltmore. She was like, "Can we live here?" We should have just bought the place and moved in. It would have been cheaper.
Because the prices.
So. Anyway, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time here on Salt.